How would you compare, starting with She's Got a Habit, the budget you had there and what the film returned? Can you just talk me through those first two?
Well, She's Got to Have It cost 175,000, ended up making 8 million. School Days cost 6.5. I think it made them in it 16, 17 million.
What's up, everyone? It's Books&Looks TV. Today I'm going to be talking about Spike Lee and She's Gotta Have It. And I do know that this is a very sensitive topic because the horrible crime of SA is involved. And I would totally understand if you choose not to watch this. Thank you for considering watching it. And if you decide to stay and hear me unpack it, I thank you as well. So I want to start off by thinking about when She's Gotta Have It came out, and I want to talk about The Color Purple. So I noticed that in The Color Purple was released a year before She's Gotta Have It was released. And I noticed that Silly was the main character who was assaulted. Steven Spielberg happened to be a white director of the movie, and there was a lot of trauma behind it. In 1985, Alice Walker sought to give a voice to Silly. Walker famously noted that Silly's trauma was a testimony, not a spectacle.
As you know, at the time, there was a lot of talk about how the novel presented a negative image of Black men, negative image of Black family. If you could have joined the debate at that time, how would you have responded to that?
Well, I would have said that I write out of what I know. I write out of my experience and out of the experience of people that I have known. And I don't make up brutality. I don't make up violence because it's something that I like or it's something that I want to use to malign Black people. But I write about it because it is a very strong reality in all of the communities on the planet. You know, violence is everywhere. It's not just Black, it's not just white. And I think that I know that I come out of a tradition where you are supposed to say when you see something is wrong.
Yet the Black community had an outcry that was focused on how Steven Spielberg's film vilified Black men. 1 year later, Spike Lee released She's Gotta Have It, and the backlash to Nola's rape was quieter because Lee was a Black man, in my opinion. If we couldn't rally around a child bride like Silly, who was depicted as undesirable, then Nola stood no chance. We see a gendered empathy gap. We are often more protective of male dignity than we are of female autonomy. If you are broken like Silly in The Color Purple, the community calls you a traitor for speaking up. If you are free like Nola Darling, they say you asked for it. You cannot be both desirable and a victim. We protect the image of the man while we tell the woman her grief doesn't count, especially when she's Black and dark-skinned. Scholar Jill Terry notes that Alice Walker's revelation of abuse was seminal. If we look at the creators like Steven Spielberg, he waived his $15 million fee to direct, backed by immense capital. However, Spike Lee, as David Alm notes, was a 29-year-old in survival mode, shooting for $175,000 in 2 weeks. To establish his voice, Lee may have felt pressured to quote-unquote discipline Nola's sexuality to appease the community defensive about male imagery. Economic vulnerability warps the lens. This brings us to a profound irony. Spike Lee famously criticized Tyler Perry's work as coonery and buffoonery, disparaging Perry's cinematic style as regressive. Yet when we look at their treatment of Black women, they are two sides of the same coin. Both creators have frequently depicted Black women being abused, humbled, or violated to serve a moral lesson. Whether it is Nola Darling being disciplined by Jamie or the recurring theme in Perry's films where independent women must suffer before finding redemption through a good man, the result is the same. The Black female body is used as a site of pedagogical violence. Despite the difference in their artistic labels, both fall back on the same patriarchal tropes that Bell Hooks identified in Lee's early work. In 1988, Spike Lee repeated this with Jane Toussaint in School Days, using her as a sexual pawn. As Bell Hooks critiqued in Black Looks, Lee's oppositional gaze failed at the gender line, reducing female trauma to a backdrop for male growth. In 2014, though, Spike Lee finally called the rape scene of his 1980s She's Gotta Have It production asinine, and he said that was his only career regret. In my opinion, the 2017 Me Too movement was a big reason that he may have removed the violation in the Netflix remake. To move from violation to harmony, it takes somatic healing, understanding the body takes score. It has a lot of discussion on somatic freeze response. And I feel like Nola Darling depicted that in her refusing to be sacrificial lambs for male reputation. I think a lot of times when we think about like date rape or knowing the predator, that people often don't sympathize it as much. And when you see Nola Darling not pretty much know how to respond or freeze, I think it's a testimony to what people often do. I think honestly too, if Nola would have fought in that scene, it would have been depicted more as rape, but in the sense where she's violated by a partner she knows, one of 3 partners, I think that Nola is objectified for being a Black sexually free woman. Overall, we are still navigating post-traumatic slave syndrome, or as my friend likes to say, it's not really post-traumatic because we're still in slavery. Nonetheless, post-traumatic slave syndrome is known as the trauma of being viewed as pleasure or profit. However, it is vital not to tie pleasure solely to the history of slavery. It is human nature to enjoy sex. Pleasure is a God-given right, not a symptom of trauma. Nola wasn't acting out of trauma. She was leaning into her humanity, what it meant to be pleasurable and what she enjoyed. The tragedy is that her natural joy was weaponized against her by men she trusted to understand her pleasure through the lens of control. As scholar Nina Cartier notes, power creates possibilities. The ideological power in Black screen representations creates possibilities because our engagement with characters like Nola is a reification of a collective sense of self. When Nola is violated, the possibility of Black female autonomy is attacked. We aren't just watching a movie, we are watching the boundaries of our collective identity being drawn. I think healing requires a sister circle and somatic understanding. When I think about how Nola was attacked in the 1980s film by women who were saying, "No, you slept with my boyfriend," it just doesn't hold men accountable. And also it shows like a breakdown of Black sisterhood. I think that a lot of times Black women come together after heartbreak, a lot of times from men. And I think if Nola had a strong sister circle who understood her, I think she would be more protected. And I know it was just a movie, but even when you think about like how some sex workers move in packs, they seem to be protected more. The radical act of deciding that your body is a sanctuary was very much represented in Nola and how she moved in her self-governance and co-regulation. However, healing the nervous system so you no longer need to control others to feel powerful matters. We deserve to exist, to paint our own narratives, and to be entirely free. The question I have for you all today is, do we only humanize Black women when they are broken? Or can we learn to protect them while they are still whole and free? And I bring that up because I think about, again, Silly and The Color Purple. Yes, she was dehumanized, but a lot of people feel empathy for her in some ways. But I do feel like the audience overall didn't feel any empathy for Nola because they saw her a bit as a loose woman. And I know this is a nuanced conversation. And so that's why I asked you all your opinions. Have you seen She's Gotta Have It? Have you seen both versions, the Netflix series and the 80s version? And what do you think about the Silly comparison? Let me know down below in the comments. Be sure to like, comment, and hype up this video. And thank you so much for listening to Books and Looks TV. I'll see y'all next time.